film began one afternoon in Seoul, South Korea, where a team of seasoned firefighters was busy with a delicate rescue mission. They were at an apartment complex, carefully working to save a man struggling with depression. The rescue was a success, a testament to their professionalism and compassion.
영수야, 정확히 5초 있다가 푼다.
Somewhere else at the fire station, a new recruit named Cheol-woong arrived, eager to start his career. He was nervous but excited, and he waited patiently for his senior colleagues to return. Just as the senior firefighters returned from their mission, Cheol-woong stepped forward to introduce himself. He took a deep breath, but before he could say a word, the station's alarm blared, cutting him off. The mood instantly shifted from calm to frantic. Cheol-woong was immediately swept into the chaos. He didn't have a chance to grab his bearings. He was told to just follow them and get in the truck. The team rushed to the scene of a major traffic accident. Cars were overturned, glass was everywhere, and smoke billowed from the wreckage. This was Cheol-woong's first real emergency, and the sheer scale of the disaster overwhelmed him. He froze, his mind unable to process the urgency and the shouts of his colleagues. When a senior officer told him to help evacuate the victims, a wave of panic washed over him. He stood there, useless, while others worked quickly around him. That night, after the successful but difficult evacuation, Cheol-woong was called out by his senior. His senior, disappointed and frustrated, gave him a stern lecture. Luckily, his status as a new recruit saved him from a more serious punishment. His senior told him that the job of a firefighter was a matter of life and death, with no room for hesitation. He ordered Cheol-woong to memorize every tool and every evacuation procedure until it became second nature. He told him that he had to be nimble and that this was the most important quality in a firefighter. Cheol-woong was filled with a sense of determination. He understood his senior's words and promised that he would not let it happen again. A few weeks later, on his day off, Cheol-woong went to the house of his work colleague, Yong-tae. They had known each other for years, ever since they were in mandatory military service together. As they sat and talked, Cheol-woong asked Yong-tae about their captain, Jin Se-up. He was a bit confused by his captain's approach to the job. He said that a firefighter's job was to put out fires, but their captain went above and beyond, helping the police and even helping a citizen with a ring that was too tight on their finger. Yong-tae smiled and explained that their captain was a person with a great sense of humanity. He was not just a firefighter, but a public servant. Because of his dedication, he was recognized as the most helpful public servant for 5 years in a row. Cheol-woong was left in a state of awe, his initial confusion replaced by admiration. The next afternoon at the station, Captain Jin Se-up received a call from his wife. He listened intently and she sounded happy. She told him that she had found the perfect location for the business she had always wanted to open. She explained that she had long dreamed of being her own boss and running a successful venture. Her voice was full of excitement, but her next request was somber. She asked him to retire as soon as possible so he could help her manage the business. Jin Se-up, who still had a great passion for his job and a life to live as a firefighter, gave her a short, non-committal answer. He wanted to be a good husband, but he couldn't leave his life's work behind. In the break room, Cheol-woong and Yong-tae were laughing and joking when the emergency alarm blared. The operator's voice, full of urgency, announced a major fire at a residential apartment building. 2 victims were still trapped inside. The team scrambled to get into the truck and raced to the scene, but the fire truck was forced to a dead stop. A car had been parked illegally, blocking the road entirely. At that time in South Korea, fire trucks were not protected by special laws and had to wait in traffic like any other vehicle, even in a dire emergency. With no other choice, the firefighters jumped out of the truck, grabbed their heavy equipment, and ran toward the building. Luckily, the location was close and they arrived in minutes. The residents who had already been evacuated were furious. They screamed at the firefighters, cursing them for their slow response. But the team ignored them and immediately began their work. Jin Se-up, the captain, calmly and quickly gave out orders. One team was to set up outside and put out the fire, while another was to go inside and search for the victims. Once everyone was ready, the firefighters began their mission. Inside the burning building, the heat was intense. Just as the team was about to find the victims, a firefighter came out and urgently informed the commander that the apartment was filled with gas cylinders. The commander panicked. If the fire wasn't put out quickly, there would be a massive explosion. He ordered the team inside to get out immediately. However, before the victims could be found, a gas cylinder exploded. The blast was devastating. One of the firefighters was seriously injured and had to be immediately evacuated. The remaining firefighters managed to find the first victim and safely bring them out. Jin Seop and Young Tai went back inside to search for the second victim with another firefighter. As they went deeper into the building, the firefighter's oxygen tank ran out. He was forced to leave, leaving only Jin Seop and Young Tai inside. Outside the building, the commander, now desperate, pleaded with them to leave. The building was on the verge of collapsing. Jin Seop, however, ignored the warnings and pressed on. He was filled with a sense of dread, but he was also determined to save a life. After a long search, they finally found the second victim, a little girl, hidden under a bed. They immediately started to find a way out. Since it was impossible to go down, they decided to go to the rooftop. Jin Seop radioed the commander and asked him to prepare a ladder from the rooftop. Jin Seop took the lead while Young Tai carried the girl on his back. They found a ladder and started to climb, but the ladder was too old and weak. It broke, and Young Tai fell and had a moment hanging over the blazing fire. But not before he threw the girl to the safety of Jin Seop's arm. Jin Seop tried to save him, but his effort was in vain. Soon, Young Tae's hands gave up on him, and he fell to his death.
In the hallway's cold and hollow gleam, a silent scream, a shattered dream. Books and fists, their laughter stings, a fragile heart bound by their strings. At home the echoes louder still, a crueler world that breaks the will. Family faces etched with pain, in shadows deep the tears remain. But even glass, when pressure grows, cuts sharper than the winter snows. In silent rage, a fire was born, a soul now twisted, bruised and torn.
3 months had passed since the tragic loss of his friend, Young Tai, and the grief still clung to Cheo Woong like a second skin. He decided to take a leave of absence, hoping to find some peace and a way to cope with his trauma. The day his leave ended, he returned to the station, but the scars were more than just emotional. He was still haunted by the events, and the sight of a simple gas stove was enough to make him dizzy and sick to his stomach. His commander, understanding the immense psychological toll of the job, took pity on him and granted him another week of leave. The next morning, government officials and fire department leaders gathered for a press conference. The mood was somber, but the words spoken were sharp and cutting. A government representative announced a significant cut to the fire department's budget, justifying the decision by claiming that the firefighters were lazy and often arrived late to emergencies. The accusation was an unfair blow to a department that risked their lives daily. Captain Jin Seop, a man of integrity and unwavering dedication, raised his hand and requested to speak. He stood up, his voice filled with a quiet fury that commanded the attention of everyone in the room. He spoke not with a tone of complaint, but with one of pure, raw truth. He revealed that because of the meager budget, firefighters were not working with proper fire-resistant gear. They wore cheap raincoats instead of suits worth millions of won. Their gloves were not fireproof, but ordinary work gloves used by construction workers. He then spoke of their work hours. They worked a grueling 12-hour shift, not including overtime, while the average person worked only 8 hours a day. He then addressed the accusation of laziness and slow response times. He said that a primary reason for their slowness was the number of illegally parked cars blocking their path. He said that he was not against the budget cuts and that he and his team would continue to work with the equipment they had. He, however, pleaded with the government to pass a law that would give fire trucks the right-of-way. He begged them to be allowed to run over illegally parked cars that stood in their way, to be allowed to get to the scene faster and save more lives. His passionate plea resonated with everyone in the room. A week later, a new storyline began. While cleaning the fire truck, a firefighter named Hyo Jong received a surprise visit from his sister, Hyo Min. He was overjoyed to see her, but his happiness was short-lived. She had not come to see him but to see her husband, a fellow firefighter named Gichol. The two siblings were orphans and had only each other, but ever since his sister got married, they rarely saw each other. After giving Gichol his lunch, Hyomin went to her brother and told him that she had an important family dinner next month. She asked him to come and take their father's place. She asked him to wear a suit, as she didn't want him to embarrass her in front of her in-laws. Hyojong promised to buy a new suit, even though he knew he couldn't afford it. He would do anything to make his sister happy, even if it meant risking everything. The next day, Chol-won went back to work. His colleagues were relieved and happy to see him, a sense of joy and comfort filling the air as they caught up. After exchanging a few words, Chol-won went to see his captain, Jin Seop. The captain, a man of few words, got straight to the point. He told Chol-won that he needed to move into the employee dorms for the next 2 weeks to prepare for a physical test. He said that if he failed, he would be transferred to a division in another city. Just as the captain was about to leave, Chol-won stopped him. He told him that he was taking the civil service exam to become a public official. He said that if he succeeded, he would continue his career in politics and would change the laws to protect the firefighters. He then proceeded to tell the captain that he was selfish. He said that he was too focused on saving people that he would sacrifice anyone. He said that a captain should be a person who fights for his team's rights, not someone who accepts the status quo. Jin Seop was taken aback by Chol-won's words. He was initially hurt, but he quickly realized that Chol-won's anger was not out of spite, but out of a deep sense of injustice. The next afternoon, the commander of the fire station went to a fire equipment store to buy new gear. He was shocked to find that a single pair of fireproof gloves cost an arm and a leg, and he needed 5 pairs. The budget was far short of what he needed. The commander, unwilling to put his team in danger, decided to buy the gloves with his own money. It was an act of sacrifice, a quiet protest against the government that did not value their lives. Meanwhile, in the break room, Hyojong and Gichol were talking about Hyomin. Hyojong, a man who had only his sister in the world, was worried about his brother-in-law. He suggested that Gichol transfer to the administration division. Gichol's wife was pregnant, and Hyojong did not want his brother-in-law to be in danger. He said that if he died, at least Gichol would still be there to take care of his sister. Gichol was left in a state of inner conflict, torn between his duty as a firefighter and his responsibility as a husband and a father-to-be. Late one evening, a drunken Chol-won sat alone on the sidewalk in front of a convenience store. He was wallowing in his grief and regret. His colleague, Seo-hee, happened to be walking by and was concerned to see him in such a state. She offered to take him home, but he angrily refused. In a slurred confession, he told her that he had cursed at the captain, Jin Seop, and he wasn't sorry. He blamed the captain for Yongtai's death, saying that if a situation was too dangerous, firefighters should save themselves first, not risk their lives for others. Seo-hee listened calmly, a sense of sadness in her eyes. She told him that it seemed like he wasn't cut out for a job that required him to save people. The next morning, Jin Seop and his wife visited a small store they were considering renting. His wife's face was full of pure joy as she walked around the empty space, envisioning their future. The sight of her happiness filled Jin Seop with a sense of immense love and dread. He finally worked up the courage to tell her that he wasn't ready to retire. Her smile immediately vanished, and she was filled with rage. She told him that she wasn't mad about the low salary. She was mad because she was terrified of losing him. She confessed that every time she heard a siren at night, her stomach turned, and she couldn't sleep. Her chronic anxiety had led to a chronic stomach illness. With tears streaming down her face, she begged him to retire, not for her business, but for their family. In a moment of quiet surrender, he agreed. He told her that he would retire next month. The next morning at the fire station, a pleasant surprise awaited Hyojong. He opened his locker and was stunned to find a brand new pair of fire-resistant gloves. His face lit up with a huge smile. He was thrilled with the smallest of gestures. He happily put on the gloves. The soft leather, a huge improvement over his old worn-out gloves. From outside the window, the commander watched him. He smiled to himself, a silent act of kindness that spoke volumes. Later that day, Jin Seop confided in Seo-hee and Hyojong. He told them that he was retiring next month and wanted to recommend Hyojong as his replacement. He then told them a story about his first mission as a new recruit. He said that a senior firefighter had saved a person's life with only a crowbar and a simple mask. After the mission was over, Jin Seop asked the senior if he had been scared. The senior answered that he was indeed terrified. He told Jin Seop that his eyes had been burning from the smoke and his body was scorched from the heat. He wanted to run, but he knew that if he did, the person inside would die. He had kept going, his heart pounding, because he knew he had to save a life. It was a story that defined Jin Seop and his purpose as a firefighter. The story left Hyo-jong and Seo-hee in a state of awe, a testament to the captain's legacy. One afternoon during a patrol, Seo-hee asked Cheo-won to go for a walk to see the children leaving school. She pointed to a young schoolgirl and told him that she was the girl Yong-tae had saved before he died. Cheo-won was left speechless. It was a light bulb moment that finally made him understand the true meaning of being a firefighter. As Seo-hee then told him that while he might still be struggling to accept Yong-tae's death, he had to understand that Yong-tae hadn't died in vain. He had given his life to save another human being. Seo-hee then remembered that the captain, Jin Seop, had asked Cheo-won to go home early. Jin Seop knew that Cheo-won had a civil service exam that day. He told him that he expected him to pass the exam and become a public official so he could change the laws that were putting firefighters in danger. That afternoon after his exam, Cheo-won returned to the station and met with the captain. Jin Seop asked him how the exam went. Cheo-won told him that he had successfully answered all the questions, but had not submitted his exam. He then apologized to the captain for his harsh words and asked him if he could stay on the team. Cheo-won told him that he no longer wanted to change the world as a public official, but wanted to change it as a firefighter, a man who could save lives just like the captain. Jin Seop was so moved by Cheo-won's words that he had a lump in his throat. He was so proud of his young recruit. That night, just as the firefighters were relaxing, the emergency alarm blared. They jumped into the truck and raced to the scene. But once again, they were stopped by an illegally parked car. It was déjà vu all over again. The firefighters had no choice but to get out and run 160 meters with 25 kilograms of equipment. It was a race against the clock. When they finally arrived at the scene, the fire was raging. The winds were strong, causing the fire to spread like wildfire. After receiving instructions from the captain, the firefighters got to work.
벌써 건물 전체에 다 파진 것 같다.
들리면 소리치세요! 몰라요. 올라가실 필요 없어요.
오케이, 알았어. 야야, 죽지만 도와줘 임마.
In the middle of putting out the fire, Hyo-jong yelled that his hose was too short. He said that they would have to go deeper into the building to save the victims. In a moment of pure adrenaline, Cheo-won ran back to the fire truck and drove the truck closer to the building, crashing into every single car parked illegally on the side of the road. After a few minutes of struggling in the blazing fire, all the victims were successfully evacuated. However, the owner of the building began to yell, saying that her child was still trapped inside. The captain, Jin Seop, was caught in a pickle. The commander, realizing the danger, ordered them not to go inside. The building was old and falling apart, and the fire was spreading everywhere. The building was a ticking time bomb that could collapse at any minute. Despite the commander's desperate warnings, Jin Seop was not one to back down from a fight. He looked at the old building and made a decision. He was going in. The other firefighters, including Hyo-jong and Cheo-won, followed their captain without a moment's hesitation. They were a team, and they would face their fate together.
따라와.
At exactly 4:27 a.m., just as they were about to find the child, the building began to shake. The ground gave way and the building collapsed, burying the team alive. The commander and the remaining firefighters frantically dug through the burning rubble. The heat was immense, but they worked with a desperate fury, not caring about their own safety. After a seemingly endless search, they found Cheo-won, miraculously alive. He was the sole survivor. The rest of the team, including Jin Seop, Hyo-jong, and Gi Cheol, had perished. They found Jin Seop, his body severely injured. In his final moments, he remembered the beautiful memories he had with his family. He thought of his wife waiting for him to come home, a home he would never return to. A few minutes later, he took his last breath.
It tolls for them, a reckoning, a bitter end
The next morning at the hospital, Jin Seop's wife ran to the commander, her face full of hope. The commander, with a heavy heart, couldn't bring himself to tell her the truth. He simply told her that her husband was in surgery. She was relieved and began to pray for her husband's recovery. The commander could only stand by her side, a silent, heartbroken accomplice to her prayers. At the station, Hyomin arrived, trying to remain strong. She had already been told that her brother had died, and she had come to pack his belongings. She had held it all together, but when she saw the cheap suit her brother had bought for her family dinner, her facade broke. The suit was a symbol of his love and his final sacrifice. It was a gut punch she was not prepared for, and her tears began to flow freely. It was the final straw that broke her spirit. A few weeks later, a tribute ceremony was held to honor the fallen. Cheo Woong, now the new captain, gave a speech. His voice, filled with raw emotion, commanded the attention of everyone in the room. He said that his colleagues did not die in vain. He said that their deaths were a testament to their unwavering dedication to their job. With tears in his eyes, he gave a final salute to his fallen friends. The salute of a man who had lost everything but had found his purpose. The story of these heroes may have ended, but their struggle had not. He said that he and all the firefighters of the world would continue to fight to save human lives, for it was a noble and selfless
A
job.
lock, a door, a hidden blade. The plans were drawn, the price was paid. Through classroom walls, the whispers spread of fear and guilt, of tears.